Hi, I'm Rachel Allday, and this is the Hospitality Breakroom, recorded weekly in our actual break room at the Abode Luxury Rentals offices in Park City, Utah. This season on the podcast, the founder and CEO of InHaven, Ashley Ching, and her teammate Megan Myers will be joining me for the 10 full episodes.
Our theme this season is certainty, served weekly with InHaven. This is your inside look at how local property managers are setting new standards in vacation rentals. Each week, we unpack the real challenges behind the bed, bath, kitchen, and beyond, offering practical solutions, myth-busting truths, and tips from the field.
Whether you're a seasoned property manager, vendor, owner, or just curious about getting into the vacation rental space, this series shares the real-life tools and stories that bring more consistency to every stay. Powered by Abode Luxury Rentals and InHaven, built for those who want to do things better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Allday, and welcome back to the Hospitality Breakroom. And today was going to be our last episode of our series, our season of Certainty Served Weekly with InHaven. But we actually are going to do one more episode after this because we just have so much to talk about, which I feel like we knew from the very beginning that this was going to need even more than 10 episodes. And so today's theme is, I think, probably, I don't know, could I say it's my favorite from the whole season? I did like all of these episodes so much. Well, this one is just like something that's definitely on my mind, mostly because of Ashley and Megan. And I love talking about it. But today, Ashley's going to do most of the talking, and she has got so much to share with us. So we're going to be talking about sort of historically how it's looked with national vacation rental property management operations and why potentially looking at some, factual historical evidence, why that may not have worked so far and how it may look potentially, if it does work out. So Ashley, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So, if you guys were one of the few that were following along as I was posting about Vacasa, we know that on December 30th, so the end of last year, 2024, Vacasa had announced its proposed sale to the consortium that included Casago and a bunch of different private equity companies, Silver Lake, Riverhead, Level Equity. And so this unexpectedly triggered a very interesting bidding war as Davidson Kempner, Vacasa's largest lender, who also owned a significant equity position and had two board seats, opposed the sale of the Casago consortium and decided to submit a competing bid. And I think everyone was following weekly on the updates.
I was
Totally.
following.
Yes. So I covered this fascinating bidding war from January to its resolution in April, with the Casago consortium eventually winning. And so, as part of the CASA's publicly regulated filings, we gained significant insights into the Vacasa business, and through these board presentations and pages and pages of meeting minutes and additional financial disclosures. So, the sale, I think, of Vacasa really serves as a bookend to an incredible story of a company that started out managing just one property in Portland, Oregon in March 2010, and then experienced explosive growth, resulting in this multi-billion-dollar IPO, and then culminating in a distressed sale as the company was running out of cash at the end of last year. And so, while I found this story of Vacasa to be fascinating, what's even more interesting is the parallel story of another hospitality company called Aimbridge. Have you guys heard of Aimbridge? You probably have now.
Only
Well, I've
because
heard
of
of
you.
Ambridge because of you, but before
Yeah.
you told me about it, I never heard of it.
Mm-mm.
So, Aimbridge is the largest independent hotel management company in the world, and it manages over 1,500 hotels. So, Aimbridge is essentially the Vacasa of the hotel industry. And what's really interesting is 3 weeks after Vacasa announced its proposed sale to the Casago consortium, Aimbridge announced its out of court bankruptcy restructuring that basically wiped out all of the equity of its private equity investor, Advent International. And they had to write down over $1 billion in debt, causing really significant losses for their equity and debt holders. So super significant in the hotel side. So as we were watching the Vacasa story unfold in the hotel industry, they were watching the Aimbridge story unfold.
Wait, and is Ambridge the biggest, the hotel, sorry, is Ambridge the property management company within hotels that has the most hotels under management? Okay.
Yes. They had the most. So they're managing
Not
about,
anymore.
Yeah, not anymore, I
yeah.
guess. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Has there been a revolution there or a resolution there, Ashley, with Ambridge?
They're just kind of right now, they're going through the restructuring coming out of bankruptcy.
Got it. Okay.
So does that mean, like, all the hotels they manage are gonna have to find other management companies?
No, but they're just making significant changes
Okay.
right now. So what's really interesting is while both Vacasa and Ambridge, who both started in 2010 or around 2010, started with super organic and moderate growth, right? They then at the same time saw significant growth through M&A, and then they saw, significant growth through large M&A deals. And then through those large M&A deals, disasters started to happen and there was a lot of churn, and they both, went into financial distress around the same time. So it's just fascinating. And at the VRMA Executive Summit, we'll put the timelines up side by side, so everyone can see, and we'll share this out.
Yeah, just to clarify, Ashley's gonna have, a session that's like a fireside chat. It'll be like a smaller session, during the executive summit, which is next week, and so this will be released, I think,
Monday.
on Monday when the executive summit will start the next Monday. So it's the 28th through the 30th, I believe, of May, and it's taking place, in Miami, and so Ashley will be talking about this topic there in case anyone who's listening is gonna be there. Watch for her session timing.
Yep. So just to give you a little bit more detail into the Vacasa history, and then we'll kind of go into Ambridge a little bit more so you can kind of understand the side by side. So we really have 5 phases of Vacasa. So starting in 2010, they started again with one property in Portland, and they grew moderately to about 1,200 units in a 4-year time period. So by 2014, they had 1,200 units. And so we really look at that phase as the organic growth phase. Starting in 2015, this is where we saw phase 2 start, which is really where you see a lot of private equity backed M&A. So they were able to do this through different capital raises. So in December of 2015, they raised 35 million in a Series A led by Level Equity, and then in 2017 they raised an additional 104 million in a Series B. And so this gave them the capital to go out and purchase over 90 different companies from 2015 to 2018.
And this is all over the US at this point, right?
I believe so. I think this is just, yeah, in the US. And so this took their listings from 1,200 units in 2014 to just under 11,000 units in 2018.
I mean, I remember this happening. I was like, it was totally freaking me out
Mhm.
because I didn't know what it meant, and I was just like, "What are they doing? I don't get it."
Yeah.
Now I get
And
it.
then they kind of moved on to the next phase, which started in 2019, which we call the large merger and acquisition deal period. And in 2019, they raised an additional 319 million in a Series C led by Silver Lake. And in July of 2020, they raised an additional 108 million. So a lot of money that were both raised by Silver Lake, a Series C and Series C. And this capital went into what I call elephant hunting. They acquired Wyndham Vacation Rentals in 2019, which included over 9,000 properties for 162 million. And then in March of 21, they acquired Turnkey Vacation Rentals.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. I remember this. Yeah.
And so their unit growth from 2018 went from like around 11,000 units all the way up to 44,000 in
Oh
2022.
my gosh.
Significant
Yeah.
growth. So then in 2022, we really start the phase of churn. So this is really after reaching the 44,000 units, Vacasa started to churn. I mean, in reasons we all talk about today. One, there was a lot of homeowner dissatisfaction. There was a lot of dissatisfaction. The industry was slowing down. And so they saw a pretty significant decline, around 18% by 2024. They were down to about 36,500 units.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and then all this came to a head when they were basically running out of money, which we call in phase 5, the distress sale phase, where they were able to ink this deal with the Casago consortium at a share price that was 97% below its IPO.
Well,
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's incredible to see sort of this significant growth followed by, this sort of catastrophic decline. And if we think about those 5 phases and we look at Ambridge, very similar story here. Sorry for all the numbers. Are you guys following me?
no,
Yes.
this is good.
Okay.
Yeah. But so And was Ambridge around longer, or is it started at a similar time?
Started at the same
Around the same time.
Oh,
It's been around a little bit longer, but, it had the same phases.
I
Um,
thought Ambridge was like a distribution company for I got that wrong. Okay. See, this is
right?
like important. No, I'm serious because I thought Ambridge was the company that hotels were buying that was like setting the standards.
Oh, no, that's a bunch.
Avendra.
Avendra. See, you guys, I keep getting this wrong. Okay. So
I get them mixed
Ambridge,
up too. It's the A's.
it's so many
Mhm.
A's. Okay, so Ambridge is strictly a property management company in the
Yeah.
hotel
Mhm.
space.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like we should just reiterate right now just because most people listen to every single one of our episodes from start to finish and then, like, listen to it one more time because there's so much good information. But in case everyone hasn't heard every episode, then the concept of just the fact that hotels are owned by someone and managed by what is called a property management company that is not necessarily the brand. Like, if it's a Hyatt, it's owned by someone, not Hyatt. It's managed by some property management company that manages hotels, and then it has the Hyatt brand, and I think it's good for all just to let all of our listeners know in case people don't know that, I think that's not all that commonly known, and so we sort of talked about that in the beginning of this, but just again, Aimbridge is a property management company just like, Abode or, just like Vacasa or Casago, but it's in the hotel space.
exactly, and no one it really a lot of people don't know this, you never go to a hotel, a Westin or a Hyatt and say, "Wow, I had a great Ambridge experience."
Right, yeah.
Uh, Structure is very different, than the vacation rental space. So, yeah, Ambridge is a hotel property manager just like, any property management company in the vacation rental space, and they are the largest. And so they went through these and to clarify, Megan, they were founded in 2003.
Okay.
And
Okay.
from 2003, really all the way up to 2010, there was a very moderate growth, and we call that phase again that phase 1 organic growth. So in 2010, they had roughly 70 hotels, and then by the time 2012 came around, they had about 77. So super moderate growth.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. And
Then
what
they
kind of hotels were these, Ashley?
it could be like a Hyatt, Hilton,
Okay.
um,
So
you
just
know
kind of all over the board.
yeah, mhm. And then what they did is then in phase 2, at the same time that Vacasa reached phase 2, which is what we're calling the private equity backed M&A, Ambridge reached this time period. And so they did a couple capital raises to fuel their acquisition. So they did a big raise in 2013 and 2015. And through this time period, they acquired a new hotel management company every year. So that started with Evolution Hospitality in 2015. 2016, they acquired Pillar Hospitality, which had 178 hotels. Then they acquired TMI Hospitality and One Hospitality. And so this allowed them to grow from 77 hotels in 2012 to 800 hotels in 2018.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty significant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they went into phase 3, which is the large M&A deal phase that Vacasa also went through. Advent International actually bought Aimbridge in 2019 to basically give them the capital to acquire Interstate. Interstate was the number 2 property manager in the US of hotels.
Wow. Okay. So that was their elephant
Yes.
hunting phase.
That was their elephant hunting phase, great. And so that, gave them an additional 600 hotels. And so
Wow. Okay.
the exact time period that Vacasa bought Wyndham Vacation Rentals. And it's just fascinating to me. I cannot make these timelines up. They are all happening at the same time. It's so bizarre how close, these phases fell, and the types of deals they were doing. So after reaching its peak, of 1,500 hotels, they started to experience churn. At the same time, Vacasa started to experience churn, and for the very same reasons of dissatisfaction. And so they went from 1,500 hotels to 1,100 in 2024. And this really came to a head in 2025 at the same time Vacasa was going through its distress sale. Ambridge announced an out-of-court bankruptcy restructuring. So that resulted, as I said earlier, in a complete write-off of all of Advent's equity from its purchase and a write-down of over $1 billion dollars in debt.
Wow.
So really you know, a crazy fall.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think people will say, well, maybe these are just 2 isolated events, right? Like Vacasa and Ambridge, but it's really not. So, as part of our research, we went back even further. all the way to 1998 and found really a lot more examples of scaled national hotel and vacation rental management failures that went through that same phase. They all went through those same phases again. So I often say, you know, um, history doesn't rhyme or doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And so if we look back to 1998 and 2003, this was really an era of standalone public companies. So in the hotel management industry, there was Interstate, which at the time managed 160 hotels, and they conducted an IPO and eventually saw a 40% decline in share price.
Whoa. So they did an IPO and they got all this funding and then had a 40%. Okay.
Decline. And Maristar, which is another property management company, they managed about 277 hotels at the time. They also conducted an IPO and saw a 60% decline in its share price.
I mean, so what are the reasons? Is there like,
Yeah,
or is
is it
this
the
for
elephant
another?
hunting?
Well,
Oh, we need to
I knew it. I knew you were gonna say that,
that's our next
seriously.
That's
episode.
the tease.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I love it.
um, so we were just talking about the hotel standalone public companies. At the same time in the vacation rental industry, Resort Quest was a public company and it managed about 18,000 vacation rentals and it saw a 51% decline in its share price from its IPO date. So, again, these public companies just seeing super significant declines from IPO. And then we have the second phase of these national companies that we looked at from 2000, really around 2003 to 2009, where there's a bunch of public mergers. So essentially, they wanted to address the substantial shareholder destruction that they experienced in phase one, as we just discussed. So Interstate Hotels in the hotel space merged with Maristar to create even a larger hotel management company. They at the time were managing about 411 properties. Despite its kind of increased scale, which people had said, oh, we're going to see a lot of cost savings and synergies and economies of scale here, the stock declined an additional 51%.
Okay, wait. So it's like these companies, and we're talking about hotels right now. These hotel management companies, they grow to a certain point. They take on, is this like saying they take on private equity when you say IPO? I mean, they get external funding
Mhm.
from
Public.
invest public
Mhm.
funding, and then quickly their share price drops drastically. And then the next step is that they then merge with another big company that's in the same situation.
Yep. To really
Okay.
try to
Like a bailout.
it's a bailout. They're trying to address some of the substantial destruction. And they're
So it's
saying,
like
"Okay,
they don't address
trying
it
to merge."
internally, they just try to get even bigger.
They thought the mergers would fix things. And the same thing happened in the vacation rental sector. Resort Quest was acquired by Gaylord Entertainment, which is actually a hotel operator. And this acquisition helped Resort Quest grow to over 20,000 properties.
Okay.
But eventually, all of these different property management companies were sold off in pieces, and there was a loss of 48% from their purchase price.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like all I can think about is, the homeowners that are involved in this that get screwed and or like the people that own the hotels.
And honestly, employees too, because
Oh my
it's
gosh, so
really
many
confusing
employees.
and there's a lot of layoffs oftentimes and things like
Yeah.
that happen.
And then so those were sort of like if we look at earlier examples, and then we have the most recent example, which is phase 3, which we just went through of Ambridge and Vacasa from, 2012 until today. So, what our case study will address is really looking back, not just at the last, 15 years, but the last 25 years, if we continue to see sort of the same playbook fail over and over and over again. And so, through our research, we hear from people and they say, well, there's three main reasons on why these scaled national property management companies didn't work. People blame one, executive leadership. They say, "Oh, it was private equity. Private equity ruined these companies." And then,
Wait,
another
sorry, like, versus what? Like, private equity, it should have been what? To invest
versus
instead of private equity.
it would have been public then. The contrary to private equity is going public.
But the
Um,
IPOs didn't work either, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's
Sorry, wait, say the
basically
first 2 again because I know I jumped in. I
so
couldn't
the
help it.
three most the three most popular rationales for why these national management companies were unsuccessful were for one, executive leadership, two, oh, it was the private equity that killed them, and then three, external events. And so I want to go through and kind of dispel these three myths, which will then lead into what we're going to present next week at Executive Summit. So the first, we heard over and over again, well, it was the leadership team. It was the leadership team. But if you look back from 1998 until today, there have been 15 different CEOs and executive teams that have tried to make these national property management companies successful. So, in my opinion, this is not due to a single person or a leadership team. Many have tried and they have all failed.
Yeah.
There is something structurally wrong here.
Mhm.
It cannot be solved by people.
Mhm.
So I don't believe that the reason for national property management companies failing is because of the people. The second reason, to your point earlier, Rachel, is just okay. It was people blame private equity, but you blame private equity, then it would have to be successful in a public equity realm. And in both cases, both private environments and public, both have failed. So Vacasa was public, Interstate was public, Resort Quest was public, they all failed. So really, it's not, private equity really cannot be blamed here. And then the third reason people, discuss the failure is these sort of exogenous events that have occurred over time, like 9/11, like COVID, like the global financial crisis. And yes, these were extremely traumatic events, but many others survived during this time. So, with that backdrop, we have created this case study. And to create this case study, we spoke to dozens and dozens of executives across both scaled and regional management companies, including you, Rachel, and Rob. And we spoke to a bunch of people across all three hospitality sectors. So looking at the hotel sector, the restaurant, and the vacation rental. And these conversations were with so many different types of people, from private equity investors to public shareholders to investment bankers. We spoke to homeowners, to customers, to consultants and employees. And what we'll be presenting at the VRMA Executive Summit are really what didn't work for these national public companies. And they failed at six key principles that we're going to talk about. So we're going to go, what are these six key principles? We're going to look at how scaled and regional management companies have gotten all six key principles correct and are wildly successful today, and how national property management companies have not gotten them correct, and we believe have led to the failure. So this is what we'll present on Wednesday. And then we'll also have a podcast on this next week to discuss it all together.
I love it. Like, I really need to know the 6 principles. Okay, I
I'm
also
trying
need
to
to
guess
know.
them in my mind right now.
Me too. Um, can I text you some, Ashley, and then you can no, just kidding.
Yeah.
Um,
Shake my head.
um, okay, so are there in the hotel space, are there any property management companies that have scale as large as the one we're talking about that I'm gonna say the name wrong, so I'm gonna try, what is
Bridge?
Ambridge,
No.
that have been successful? Or Ambridge was the biggest and they're not? Or is there another one that worked out good that's that
Well, it
big?
also depends on how you define success.
Well, Ambridge was not successful, and there was the largest, and then they acquired Interstate, which also wasn't successful. We really, and this is kind of all coming out next week, you really can't go above 300 hotels. That's
Okay.
a lot of
No one
churn.
above 300 has, like, been able to be
Never been
successful,
successful.
whether it's with holding their share price or profitability or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. See, that's so interesting to me. Like, this stuff, I love this. I hope that people listening, like, can understand what we're talking about, and I feel like when Ashley, when you, present at Exec Summit, that I know you'll have, like, some visuals, and I think that does help. I know for me, like, sometimes listening to stuff like this can be confusing, but I also feel like this topic is so interesting because we're at this point. I mean, we really have been for a while, but like we're at this point in the vacation rental industry where there's growth and there's consolidation, and it's very much like what's going to happen next. And so being able to look at the hotel industry is really helpful, but it still feels really confusing. And then once you guys put this kind of reporting together and like look at it from these different angles with more data, to me, it's like it. literally can help me sleep at night because it takes away. I mean, there's so much uncertainty in the world in general, but, like, in my job and in my career and in my industry, and I feel like that's a lot of the people listening. There's so many people listening, but a lot of them, I feel like that they could probably understand that, right? It's like the world is a crazy place. Vacation rentals as an industry is a crazy place, but being able to have someone who does the work to put the data together and then analyze it with like a background understanding, a comparative industry really can help like create a sense of understanding of the world that we're in for this industry, which like I don't think we've ever had before.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, it's fascinating when we go through these 6 key principles, how they are very much relevant to any hospitality industry, and it's something that, you can really study in your business, and across the hotel and restaurants as well. So it's just fascinating to find these findings, and it's, we really see success if you follow, these principles, which we'll release next week.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, Ashley and her husband, Mike, you guys both, like, you do this work that, I couldn't do. Like, I want to know what you guys are figuring out with your studies, and I totally would put the work in if I would know the way like, the data that I needed to get, who I could get it from, and which way that I could analyze it in order to get something out of that data that would help me understand, like, the bigger picture, and I just don't have that ability, like, that's not the kind of brain I have or whatever, and so to me, it's just, like that's why I get so excited about what Haven's doing, and especially when you guys are reporting on this stuff and kind of doing these studies when you asked, like, Rob and I to have a conversation with you guys about it, I was so excited, and you know this. I was like, "Can we have 5 more conversations on this?" Because to me, it's just like, I know that I'm not able to synthesize this kind of information and then come up with something that makes sense from that data, and to me, I just feel so grateful that there are people that have that kind of a brain, that have that kind of background and that ability, and then they're willing to put that towards our industry in such an in-depth way that, like, can help all of us, so I know I was, like, really adamant. I really wanted Ashley to talk at Executive Summit for VRMA coming up in a few days, and, some of the people that are involved in the committee, like, at first weren't exactly sure. They're like, "Well, I don't get what she's talking about," and I was like, I wanna explain it better, but I can't because, like, I don't have that brain and I don't have that understanding, and I can only, like, explain it in a little certain ways that maybe aren't as helpful, but I think the more people that can have access to the kind of information that Ashley, you and your husband Mike have put together, the better off we are as an industry at understanding where we're at and where we're going and
Mhm.
just yeah.
And that just, like, goes into, I mean, you guys have incredible operations, right? Like, you are, when I think about top operators, I mean, what you and Rob have built is amazing. And so I think the collection of, and that's what the community that we're building really at In Haven, and Megan's really taking the lead on this, is this community of like-minded professionals that wanna learn from each other and share, you know, best practices and interesting things, and so I think this is really the beginning of what we're building, at In Haven.
I love it. I
Lots
love
of
it so
lots of more
much.
learnings to come.
And I'm
Changing the
sorry that I'm
game.
sniffling, you guys. Sorry
Oh,
that
no,
I'm, like, sitting over
good.
here. I have a cold. It's embarrassing. I was trying not to sniffle, but I'm like, "What's worse,
Better
boogers?"
now than next week at
I
exec.
know, right? I know. I'm, like, all over all the NyQuil and DayQuil. I'm like, "I have to knock this out."
Mhm.
Pronto. Okay, so I feel like, this is very obviously pertinent, valuable information, but really, clearly, there's some important parts of this that you're gonna wait and share at Executive Summit. And then, I don't know if everyone caught this, but just to reiterate, because clearly that's what I like to do, Ashley will be discussing those 6 points that, she left out on this episode and really just, like, sharing the details from what's gonna be presented at Executive Summit. She'll also be sharing that on our next episode. So this episode that we're recording right now will be coming out on what day will this be? It's gonna be a
Monday the
Monday.
27th.
Okay, Monday the 27th. So Monday,
Is
May
that right, or is it
27th
Monday the 26th?
is probably wait, let's see.
Monday the
It's the
26th, yeah.
26th.
Monday the
Okay,
26th.
Monday, May 26th is when everyone who's listening right now is listening because I know what you're doing. I know that you just, like, go to bed at night and you're just
On
so
Sunday
excited.
night, waiting
Yeah,
for Monday morning.
that's right. Sunday night, you go to sleep and you're just like, "How many more hours until they drop the next episode?" So, on Monday, May 26th, you're probably listening to this, like, right when it drops. I know that's what my mom does. Just kidding. I don't think my mom even listens, you
My
guys, but
mother-in-law
okay.
does, so she's
Okay.
listening.
Oh,
What's her
good.
name?
Susie.
Hi, Susie. Thanks for listening. Um, Okay, so, anyway, this one's gonna be Monday the 26th, but then the next episode, which will come out on June 2nd, will be where, Ashley will be sharing the 6 points and wait, they're the 6 points of what? Tell me again.
Really the 6 principles that we found that these regional and scale companies follow that have made them successful, and these 6 principles that these national companies failed to meet or to achieve, and that's really we feel the reason for their failure.
Okay, and, like, because all of this is happening within the envelope of the Hospitality Breakroom podcast, where we originally sought to provide nuggets and secret sauce. I mean, you could say that the 6 principles are like the secret sauce to, like, a scalable and successful vacation rental property management company.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so that is impressive, and not just coming from, like, someone's opinion, like, I have a lot
Data
of opinions,
backed.
we all do. Yeah, this is, like, after a massive study, so I think this is really, really valuable and interesting.
Mhm. We're
Okay.
excited
I
to
can't
hear it.
wait.
Alright, we're laying it all out. So this is, like, the teaser, but also there's a lot of good information that we just shared right here,
Mhm.
and this is the shortest episode that ever happened on the Hospitality Break Room, I think, mainly
It's
because
Memorial Day for the
my
listeners,
yammering.
you know?
You're right, they're listening on Memorial Day. Yes,
Plus,
they need a little break.
they'll probably have to rewind a couple times to say, "What did she just say? What year was
Well,
that?" It might
No,
take
good
it's
us
so
a
good.
stuff.
minute. Yeah.
Honestly, I think if we can, like, really hammer home too to people in our industry in vacation rentals, like, the similarity of the concept of property management and vacation rentals as it relates to this, industry that's been around longer and has gone through more ups and downs, which is hotels. I think that's a huge point, and then once you apply on top of that, some of the data based on once investment gets involved and how that can actually work out, I think there's no way that this isn't helpful because there's no one in this industry. Honestly, I've met so many people in this industry in the last few years, and I don't think there's anyone that isn't at least considering the impact of all this investment within our industry. Even if you're not looking to sell your business, even if you already did do an exit, like, there's no way that you're not wondering, what does all this mean? What will it come to? And so having this kind of data, I feel like is just so, I don't know, for me, it's comforting. It's like, okay, okay, like, here's some concrete evidence on, like, some ways this can go, so it doesn't feel so open-ended. So, anyway, I hope everyone got a lot out of this.
It really will help you kinda control your own destiny
Yeah.
Totally. That's how
doing
I feel.
that.
Yeah.
Just you feel more empowered, to make better business decisions.
Totally. A
Ye
million, zillion percent, yes.
Thank you,
Alright.
Ashley. I can't
Thank you
wait.
so much. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for listening. And hopefully you'll come back on the next episode, which if you're listening on the 26th, the next one will be on June 2nd. And that's where the 6 principles that will blow your mind will be shared. And until then, have a
Happy
great
Memorial
afternoon,
Day.
evening, and a wonderful Memorial Day. Yeah, unless you're listening on like Tuesday, in which case you already had a great Memorial Day and we're happy for you. Okay. Megan, do you want to close it out with that B word you love?
Bye.